Hello world, and we are back. My name's Kyle Fischl. This is going to be episode 151 of my poker vlog. For this one, it is simply the 1-3 section of a session I played at the Sarasota Poker Club, One-Eyed Jacks. Before I go over the hands, it's been a week since my last video. That's because I was celebrating my 1-year anniversary in Vegas. If you're interested in some more B-roll and some reviews of some of the stuff I did during that trip, 100% touristy, no poker, leave me a comment below. Additionally, tomorrow, approximately 5 or 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be streaming a 1-2 private game online at Club GG. Be on the lookout for that. It's definitely nice to chat with the viewers in real time. And if you want a seat to the game, definitely message me on Instagram or comment below. I urge you to sign up as quickly as possible, as I will not be able to sign anyone up while I'm literally in the middle of streaming. So if you're interested in that, check that out. And with that out of the way, let's roll the tape. First hand of note. A middle position player raised to $15. I'm in the small blind. Looked down at pocket fives. Gonna complete here. Don't think 3 betting is the best option here. Set minding seems more plus EV, as I can play this hand pretty easy. You make a set, you continue, you whiff, you fold. So when I make the call, the big blind comes along as well. So we end up going 3 ways to a flop of King 9-5 all clubs. So we bink a set, but it's not our favorite board. Obvious flush available. I check, the big blind checks, and then the pre-flop aggressor decides to bet $40. Never folding right now. Set can easily turn into a full house. My opponents don't actually have to have a hand at all that beats me right now, so I'm going to continue. Kind of surprised to see the big blind continue as well, so going to have to tread a little bit cautiously on future streets. The turn is the 8 of spades. It does complete 6-7, but besides that, it doesn't change anything. I check to the pre-flop and flop aggressor, possibly putting a check raise at this point, depending on if he decides to go for it again. But he checks this one back. When the river is the ace of hearts, I think my hand functions pretty well as a check call. Not sure too many hands are going to pay off a bet here that are worse than mine. So I check. The big blind decides to bet $85. And in this configuration, he was the opponent who I was actually most concerned about having a flush. And then the pre-flop aggressor calls the 85. So now we're in kind of a weird spot. We can overcall on a 3 flush board. Raising seems kind of bad as we don't have the nuts or anything close to a nut blocker. So that seems somewhat out of the question. So the question is, are we good or are we going to let it go? I think with bottom set, you can go either way. The 2 players in this hand are actually 2 5 players at the 1-3 table, so they're definitely capable of having bluffs here. But would both of them have a bluff here? I'm not so certain. And with bottom set, we lose to hands like pocket nines. Maybe the pre-flop aggressor had pocket aces or pocket kings. So I think that my hand is just kind of a fold here against 2 players. So I decided to let this one go, and I'm immediately shown the bad news as the big blind had king jack with the jack of clubs, and the pre-flop aggressor had ace 9 with just the ace of clubs. So set was good.
What are you?
An idiot sandwich.
Idiot sandwich what?
An idiot sandwich, Chef Ramsay.
I played this hand horribly across multiple streets, so the solver is correct. Sometimes you just have to get it in with your sets. But following that, I'm in middle position with king jack offsuit. I raised to $15. The cutoff is the only caller, so we're going heads up to a flop of 7-5-4 2 spades. We don't have a spade in our hands. We unblock some flush draws. We have 2 overs. Not the worst situation, but this is definitely going to favor a pre-flop caller than an aggressor. So I'm going to check this one and see what my opponent decides to do. He decides to check it back. Turn is the deuce of hearts. I've kind of given up on this hand. I think my opponent has all the pairs in range, over pairs, flush draws. So I'm just going to check and give up on this one. But when my opponent checks it back, the river is the 3 of clubs. And as played, I think I have all ace-x in range and would play it the exact same way. So I'm going to go for a bluff here. Sometimes even a 2 pair will fold to a 4-liner on board, maybe 7-8. So I decided to put in the bluff attempt, rep an ace-x type hand. But you don't have to go too big with it, as really targeting a narrow and weak portion of my opponent's range. So I only bet $15 trying to get his nothings out of there. They're still better than my, king high. But he kind of haws and hems and starts adding chips and then piles about 60 and puts that in the middle. And, he just has a 6 based on what I've seen this opponent play. So it's fine. I'll just fold immediately. This bluff attempt did not work. After that, with a button straddle, I raised to $15 from early position with king, queen of clubs. only the button straddler decides to call, so we end up going heads up to a flop of king, queen, 5, 2 diamonds. I think I have too much of this board locked up to be able to bet. It's hard to get value from a king X or queen X when I block both of them. Sure, there's a flush draw out there, but with the 2 highest ones accounted for, some of the best flush draw combinations are kind of accounted for, so I'm going to check this one, try to let my opponent catch up a little bit, but he bets $15. Well, we're not folding 2 pair. At least we got some money in on this street. When I make the call, the turn is the jack of diamonds. Pretty bad card. There's a 3-liner to a straight flush on board. I don't have the betting lead, so when I check to my opponent, he assembles $105 and puts it in the middle. Yeah, almost 2x pots it. Definitely odd. I very much doubt he would do this with a made flush. Like, this usually tends to be like a draw with a ton of equity, like maybe ace 5 with the ace of diamonds, maybe jack 10 that turn a pair and a straight draw. But with my exact holding, I'm not going to go anywhere, especially as played. So I'm going to make the call here and reevaluate river. River is the 8 of diamonds. Pretty much my favorite card to come out on this run out.
What, you think that's funny?
As I still don't have the betting lead, I'm going to check to my opponent. Not sure what to do if he decides to fire, but he quickly checks it back and says no diamond. Doesn't even mean I'm good. He could have pocket jacks, maybe 10-9 specifically for a made straight that is kind of afraid of a flush. But when I show my king-queen, he mucks, and I win this hand. Kind of a strange one, but we'll take it. Next hand of note. I'm under the gun. I raise to $15 with pocket 7s. 2 later position players call, so we end up going 3 ways to a flop of 9, 8, 7. 2 hearts. We flop a set, which is pretty good. 3 in a row is not my favorite, but we do have the 7 of hearts, so we got a backdoor flush draw working for us as well. I'm going to check this one, and it checks all the way to the latest position player, who bets very small, $20. I'm going to go for the raise right here. Not going to slow play this set. We're going to try not to compound mistakes. We're just going to push the action and let the chips fall where they may. So I raised to $85. The middle position player folds, and the later position player thinks for a little bit, counts out his stack, and then pushes all in. I'm just calling. If you have a straight, I'll take my full house outs, and we will see the run out. He does indeed have the old jack 10 offsuit, so we're going to need some board pairing or some running hearts. Turn is the king of spades. That doesn't pair the board. And the river is the 10 of spades. That also does not pair the board. So my set loses to a straight, and the all-in was for $206, making the total pot $457, being shipped my opponent's way. Following that, I button straddle. I have pocket 10s, and with 1 limp, a middle position player raised to $30. Could 3-bet 10s, especially on the button, but considering this player is wild and will 2x pot at some frequency, we're going to try to pot control as much as possible against him specifically. So I choose to just call the $30, the limper folds, and we end up going heads up to an ace 9-5 rainbow board. Not my favorite, as he has all the best aces in range as well as pocket aces, and I pretty much never do as played, but he checks it to me. I think I'm pretty happy to get this closer to showdown. I have a marginally made hand, don't really need to put a bunch of money into the middle, so I check it back. The turn is the jack of diamonds. When my opponent checks it to me a second time, I'm going to go for some protection here. I don't think he ever has a pair of aces and would check it twice. If a bet here got a pair of jacks to fold, or maybe a backdoor flush draw, even king-queen, getting all that equity to fold would be a pretty good pickup in this spot. So I bet $35. My opponent thinks for a little bit and then raises to $155. Does the old 2x pot bet again. This time I'd say my hand is much, much weaker. Not sure exactly what he's saying here besides I'm soft and I won't be able to call that bet. And he's right, 10s is just not good enough in this spot. I fold. And he flips over the 7 of clubs. So don't even know what that would connect with to make this move. And even like ace 7 would probably just happily call down. So I guess I was good. I don't really know. Either way, we'll move on from there. Following that, I'm in middle position. I have ace jack of clubs. With 1 limp, I raise to $15. A late position, the small blind and the limper call. So we end up going 4 ways to a flop of king 3 deuce rainbow with 1 club. When it checks to me, no real connection, no real reason to bet into 3 other opponents, I decide to check this one back and ends up checking through, and the turn is the 10 of clubs. We turn a ton of equity, a gut shot, an over, a flush draw. We're feeling pretty good about this hand. An early position player bets $25. I don't think this is a spot to raise. We unblock all his pair of kings that would play the exact same way. He's probably not going to fold to a raise. My line doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Check back flop, raise turn. I think it looks like exactly what it is, so I'm going to just call this one. One later position player calls as well, so we end up going 3 ways to a river card, which is a 5 of diamonds. Now the aggressor checks to me. I mean, every draw missed, but we block all the draws. Like, these players can't really have queen jack because I have a jack. They can't really have missed flush draws. I have the best flush draw. I think the aggressor's going for a little bit of a pot control with a pair of kings. I think that hand is pretty happy to check call, but not really happy to bet into 2 people a second time. So I just check, give up. The later position check gives up. And it turns out he has the best hand with a pair of 5s. 4-5 offsuit is going to be the winner, and now I'm really kicking myself for not going for it on this one.
Police, get what you fucking deserve!
Luckily, I won a small one before. I button straddle with 3 limps. A middle position player raises to $40. This guy has been action today. But with king queen offsuit, definitely not a 3-bet, I don't think, so I'm going to just make the call here. Get the play in position against a maniac, so that seems pretty good. We end up going heads up to an ace king 5 2-diamond board. Flopping second pair good kicker seems decent. I have marginal showdown value. Definitely should be a call down at some percentage of the time, but my opponent just bets into me for $60. 3/4 pot. He has all the best aces. I have the queen of diamonds, so I block like queen jack or diamond draws that contain a queen. So blocking all the misses and kind of having a second best pair against someone who can easily blast off multiple streets, I think I just have to let this one go and hopefully find a better spot sometime today. Next hand of note. With 1 limp, I raise to $15 with queen 9 offsuit. A late position player, the big blind, and the limper decide to call. So we end up going 4 ways to a flop of 10-9, 8, 2 spades. This is the day of Kyle consistently flopping second pair and getting into some somewhat dicey situations. But as I play most of my hands similarly, when it checks to me, I think I can get closer to showdown by checking it. I do have a gut shot and a backdoor flush draw to fall back on if it comes to that. Later position player checks it back, and the turn is the 4 of spades. So now we have a queen high flush draw, we have middle pair. It checks to me a second time. Gonna go for a small bet here, try to thin the field. If a better 9, weak 10, 8-7, anything like that folds, it'd be a pretty good pickup. But the player who has position on me decides to call. The other 2 decide to fold, so we're actually going heads up to a river card, which is the 3 of hearts. Complete brick. I don't see any reason to bet here, so I check. My opponent bets $45. And for this hand to be beating me, it has to be a made flush, made straight, or a 10. And this opponent had the chance to bet all those hands on the flop and chose not to when it was checked to him. So I'm not really buying what he's selling. I decided to make the call here, and he just says, "You're good." Jack of spades blocker is all he had. So we end up picking one off here, so that feels pretty good. Before with 3 limps, I look down at king 9 of clubs. Haven't really been playing my best so far today. Haven't really been connecting well, so I'm going to compound that mistake by just checking here. This should be a raise most of the time. There's a ton of dead money in here. You're ahead of most of the limping range, but I choose to just check, and we are punished when we flop king 9-5. Why didn't we raise this one? We decided to check this one. I think top 2 pair just has too much of the board locked up to go for some value. No one should really have a strong king, and it's possible we can induce someone to bet with worse. Well, that ends up happening. A middle position player bets $15, and then 2 different players call. Not really sure if I can raise here. I think any of these opponents can technically have pocket 5s and play it the same way. There's no draws on this board, so how can all 3 people have a piece of it? I'm not really sure. I make the call, and the turn is the ace of hearts. I check it as I don't have the betting lead anymore. On this street, it checks through. I was probably going to raise this time, as I feel like some people would just peel with some aces and then make top pair, pay off 2 pair. Seems reasonable. But this street checks through, and the river is the 10 of diamonds. Now, queen jack was the only draw that was available that got there, but I think I get value from like 9-10, maybe ace x, that's not 2 pair, king queen. But when the small blind checks to me, I bet $35. The 2 later position players fold, and then the small blind flicks in the call. I announce 2 pair, and he doesn't really say anything, so I show my cards, and he had king 10, so kind of a stupid river card. Hands definitely played very poorly by me, and I had plenty of opportunities to win this one, just did not execute very well. Following that, with a button straddle, there's one limp. I like down ace queen of hearts, and I raised to $25. The limper is the only caller, so we end up going heads up to a king, queen, 5 board. Consistently flopping second pair today. Second pair does not beat top pair anytime. When my opponent checks to me, I'm just going to check this one back. I have marginal showdown value and a somewhat made hand, but definitely not the best hand by far. When the turn is the deuce of spades, brings in backdoor spades, my opponent bets $20. Well, as played, I'm not folding. I beat all of his weaker queens. He could have jack 10, maybe ace jack, things such as that, so definitely calling. The river is the 8 of clubs, and my opponent bets $20 again. At this point, I'm getting like 6 to 1 on a call. Seems crazy to fold here, but this player in particular, I don't think he would ever bet worse. The sizing isn't very bluff oriented at all. It's very weighted towards value, so I guess you could raise at some frequency and turn your hand into a bluff, but I don't really know what I'd be repping or what story I'd be telling, so I actually kind of tank fold, and my opponent shows a king of hearts, so it was a correct fold, but still dumb to be outflopped consistently today. After that, I'm under the gun. I have queen 9 offsuit. I raised to $15. 2 later position players call, and the big blind calls as well, so we end up going 4 ways to a 10, 9, 7, 2 spade board. We do randomize these middle pair hands. This is going to be one of the times I decide to c-bet. I do have a backdoor straight draw and an overcard if it comes to that, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I continue for $30. The player to my direct left calls, and so now we're going heads up to a turn card, which is the 10 of clubs. This is a card I very much like. Reduces the combinations of top pair my opponent could have. Additionally, if my opponent had like ace X of spades, they may fold to a turn bet as they will no longer be drawing to the nuts and may like not know where they're at if their draw actually completes. So I'm going to continue on this one. I bet $90. My opponent thinks for a little bit, counts out his chips, looks at his cards, counts out his chips. Really going back and forth, looks actually not sure what to do, but he does eventually make the call. All right, let's see a river card. This time it is the king of hearts. Not great. King X of spades is definitely possible. Queen Jack actually completes even though I block it. So not my favorite card. I check. I'll reevaluate based on what my opponent does. But he checks it back. I think I'm pretty likely to be good here. I show my hand and he has 8-9. So we end up chopping with the king kicker playing for both of us. Not really my favorite result, but I guess he did have a 8 clean outs to get a straight on me. Either way, this difficult session continues to go difficultly. And a final hand of note. I'm in early position. I have 10 jack off suit. I raised to $15. 2 late position players and the big blind call. So we end up going 4 ways to king, queen, 6, rainbow. Flopping open-ended, I have all the best kings in range, all the best queens in range. I have pocket kings, pocket queens. Most of my players can't really have those. So with my nut advantage, with my straight draw, and with my overall just tiltability right now, I'm going to go for a c-bet on this one. I bet $20, really just trying to bet small, build the size of the pot. I would bet small with a ton of my value, so I'm going to do it with this semi-bluff as well. Only 1 later position player decides to call, so we end up going heads up to a turn card, which is the 7 of spades. I think I can continue here. My opponent would continue flop with queen X, some weak kings, and fold to a turn some of the time. So I'm going to continue. I bet $65. It doesn't take too long for my opponent to fold, and the river is the 8 of spades. So we miss our draw. It's on me. My opponent has like $150 total in his stack, and I'm deciding if I'm going to go for it or not. Have jack high, so definitely not winning. But when I think about this spot, I think my opponent would have folded a queen and his weakest kings on the turn. So he's relegated to a relatively strong top pair, maybe even a top pair plus backdoor flush draw that actually came through, as that is unblocked by the highest cards. Because he's already invested about $100, only has $150 behind, I don't really think he's going to fold when he almost half his stack's invested. I choose to go for the give up on this one, and my opponent checked it back. He showed king jack off suit. After seeing his exact hand, I kind of go back and forth whether I like firing the river or not. Again, not sure he's going to fold that hand specifically, but if I have jack 10 off suit, I definitely have jack 10 of spades too, so kind of go either way with it. This time I went the passive route, and this was the result. So for this 1-3 game, after 2 hours, I am down $800, which equates to $400 an hour or $133 an hour going the other direction. Yeah, I definitely played quite poorly at this 1-3 table. Misplaying 2 sets are definitely going to cost you a lot of money, both in actual value won and value lost. But luckily for me, I get it all back and then some with a massive 2-5 swing that happened the same day right after this. So stay on the lookout for that. It'll be up in the next day or so. Additionally, if you want to see the live stream again tomorrow, 5 to 6 p.m. And if you have made it all the way to this point, thank you. I appreciate it. I will see you on the next one.